Welcome to the first public meeting open house for the I-29 exit 133 Interchange Modification Study. If you haven't done so, we encourage you to sign in at the front information table. We'll include your contact information in our email and mailing list for future notifications from the study. Also at the table is a comment card and informational handout regarding tonight's public meeting as well as the overall study. The study website is www.i29exit133.com, and everything that you see here as part of this first public meeting open house has been posted to the study website. There are multiple ways to provide comments and your feedback from what you see as part of this first public meeting. One, you can leave a comment card as you leave here tonight. You can also mail those into the address on the card. You can submit comments directly through the study website, and you can reach out to any of the study contacts. The purpose of this first public meeting open house centers around four key objectives. The first is to introduce the study. The second is to present the draft project purpose and need. Essentially, what are we looking to address here as part of this future project? Third is to introduce the I-29 exit 133 interchange alternatives and the US 14 bypass corridor alternatives. And the fourth item is to gather feedback and answer questions. One thing I do want to stress is that no interchange recommendations have been made at this point in the study, and that input from this meeting will aid the study team in refining alternatives and developing recommendations that we will be presenting back to you at the next and second public meeting. The South Dakota Department of Transportation organized a study advisory team to help guide the study through completion. And this study advisory team is made up of several members from the South Dakota Department of Transportation, Federal Highway Administration, and the City of Brookings. Study consultants for this project include HDR and Banner Associates. The study area for the Interchange Modification Study includes the I-29 exit 133 interchange, the interchange's crossroad, US 14 bypass, from just east of Jackrabbit Avenue, eastward to the US 14 bypass intersection east of Brookings. The study area also includes the adjacent interchange of exit 132, and that interchange's crossroad of 6th Street or US 14 from the 22nd Avenue intersection eastward to the US 14 bypass intersection. Study area also includes I-29 main line from just north of the exit 133 interchange and extending southward through the exit 132 interchange. The next few slides provide a little background of how we got to where we are today. In 2020, the South Dakota Department of Transportation completed the US 14 bypass corridor study that developed a long-range plan for the study corridor that included the exit 133 interchange and US 14 bypass through the interchange. This long-range plan identified potential future projects and timelines for those projects to help guide the South Dakota Department of Transportation in prioritizing improvements throughout the corridor. Alternatives developed as part of that corridor study were carried forward into this interchange modification study and are the basis for the alternatives being presented as part of this first public meeting. Moving to 2021, the South Dakota Department of Transportation completed their 2020 edition of the Decennial Interstate Corridor Study. This is a pretty large study that looks at the entire interstate system throughout the state of South Dakota and prioritizes interchange and interstate segment projects from a statewide perspective. Through a ranking process within that study, the I-29 exit 133 interchange ranked near the top and was established as a priority interchange project for the DOT over the next 10 years. Since completion of the 2020 Decennial Interstate Corridor Study, the South Dakota Department of Transportation has identified a planned project to begin in fiscal year 2029 to reconstruct I-29 exit 133 interchange, as well as portions of US 14 bypass corridor as shown there in the yellow in the figure there to the right. And this is where the Interchange Modification Study starts. That this study is looking to further define what that future exit 133 interchange configuration will look like as part of that fiscal year 2029 project. And also we'll look at the US 14 bypass corridor and identify what those specific limits are of that future project and what activity or type of project will be incorporated. There are two key objectives for this interchange modification study. The first is to develop an interchange modification justification report, or an IMJR, and that is the document that recommends the most technically feasible interchange alternative through analysis and evaluation. This document also is part of the South Dakota Department of Transportation's request to the Federal Highway Administration to modify the I-29 exit 133 interchange. Second objective is to develop an environmental screening report. And this starts with identifying the preliminary purpose and need, essentially what is the purpose of the project and what transportation related needs are we looking to address as part of this project. The screening report also includes a high-level environmental evaluation, and it assists in the alternative screening as we work towards identifying that recommended interchange alternative. We anticipate this study to last for approximately a year and a half. We started in the summer 2022 with some data collection, traffic operations analysis, and initial refinement to alternatives carried forward from US 14 bypass corridor study. That gets us to where we are today. We're seeking your feedback on those alternatives carried forward from the previous study. That feedback will allow us to move into the next phase of the study where we go into detailed refinement and evaluation of those alternatives. After that, we'll come back for our second public meeting, again ask for your feedback on those alternatives, and from there we'll take that information and we'll move into drafting the interchange modification justification report and environmental screening reports and go through iterations of those reviews. We anticipate that the study will be completed towards December of 2023. Following completion of the study, the DOT will be able to move into the environmental study, or NEPA, in 2024, also initiate design, which will extend up until construction. And we anticipate construction beginning in fiscal year 2029. And that concludes the introductory portion of this presentation. This next section will present the draft project purpose and need for your review and comment. The draft project purpose statement is to improve traffic operations and geometrics of the exit 133 interchange and US 14 bypass between its intersection with 22nd Avenue and US 14. There are three overarching project needs, and the first being traffic operations and future traffic growth. Now, while we anticipate that there will be continued growth of traffic just passing through the area on US 14 bypass and within the exit 133 interchange, one of the greatest contributors to this growth is anticipated development within the Brookings growth area, in particular from areas extending to the northeast of the exit 133 interchange up to the landfill, as well as other areas further north and west of the US 14 bypass. And with those increases in traffic volumes, we anticipate long-range operational needs at the exit 133 ramp terminal intersections and other intersections along the US 14 bypass corridor. Now, those operational needs certainly do vary from intersection to intersection, but do include looking at certain things such as additional turn lanes or modifying intersection traffic control, or even looking at the number of lanes long range on US 14 bypass. The second need is associated with the age of the existing structure. The current two-lane bridge within the exit 133 interchange will require replacement by year 2050. The existing bridge also contributes to substandard width and constraints to accommodating current and future year traffic operational needs at the ramp terminal intersections and across the bridge. And the third project need is related to improvements to geometric performance. And that's associated with curvature, sight distance, and other geometric needs with respect to current design guidelines, as well as long-range traffic operational needs at intersections along the US 14 bypass corridor. Three project goals were also identified to reflect desired project outcomes beyond the transportation needs identified in the purpose and need statement, and also to balance environmental and transportation values. First goal is to accommodate longer combination vehicles, or LCVs, within the exit 133 interchange, as US 14 bypass is a designated LCV route. The second goal is to support recommendations within the Brookings Bicycle Master Plan and improve multimodal connectivity throughout the area. Third goal is to create alternatives that are compatible with planned ITS improvements, both along I-29 main line, but also US 14 bypass. This next section of the presentation provides a brief overview of the preliminary alternatives being considered as part of the Interchange Modification Study. First, we'd like to start with the no-build alternative, or the do-nothing scenario. A no-build alternative is applicable to all segments along US 14 bypass corridor and at the exit 133 interchange. And the one thing I do want to stress is that just because the South Dakota Department of Transportation identified a fiscal year 2029 project, that does not require that there is modification to the entire potential project area. There could certainly be segments of the US 14 bypass corridor where nothing is done as part of the planned 2029 project. Moving to the build alternatives, or essentially those alternatives that reflect modification to the US 14 bypass corridor or the exit 133 interchange, there are a number of similarities across all of the build alternatives. That each of the build alternatives meet long-range traffic operations goals or intersection and corridor level of service. They maintain or improve safety. They replace the interchange bridge. They meet current design guidelines, and they support project goals. However, each of the alternatives address these long-range needs differently and exhibit varying levels of benefit or disbenefit, which we'll talk about here in the next few slides. The first difference is the number of lanes on US 14 bypass across the alternatives. There are alternatives where we maintain the existing 3-lane section and add a shared use path on the south side of the corridor. There are also alternatives that increase capacity by increasing the number of through lanes on US 14 bypass to 2 lanes in each direction, and then incorporating either a raised median or a 2-way left turn lane. Those alternatives also include a shared use path on the south side. A second difference is related to the intersection modifications. Across the various alternatives, you'll see different lane configurations, turn lane lengths, and traffic control, whether intersections are signalized or incorporate stop signs. The multi-lane corridor alternatives also incorporate positive offset left turn lanes, similar to what you see there at 69th Street and Western Avenue in Sioux Falls. And these are instances where we shift the left turn lanes as far left as we can to improve sight distance for left turning vehicles, so they can see around opposing left turning vehicles in the approaching through traffic. A third difference is related to access management. Across the alternatives, you have varying levels of access management associated with raised medians, incorporating frontage roads, or individual driveway access modifications, such as converting full access to 3/4 type access or right-in, right-out access. But the one thing I do want to stress here is that access management is not taken lightly by the study team. The extensive national research has proven significant safety benefits by managing access, reducing conflicts, and providing safe opportunities for traffic to turn to and from major roadways. There was a predictive safety analysis completed for the study, and it highlights the expected safety benefits associated with each of the alternatives. So if this is something that interests you, I certainly encourage you to reach out to project representatives as part of this open house. And finally, we want to provide a brief overview of the various alternatives developed here for this first public meeting. The alternatives are broken into different segments based on their location on US 14 bypass. The first group of alternatives reflects those west of I-29 from just east of Jackrabbit Avenue to 25th Avenue. Second group of alternatives reflects the I-29 exit 133 interchange. Third group of alternatives reflect those east of I-29 from 32nd Avenue east to just north of the US 14 bypass intersection. And the fourth group of alternatives reflects those at the US 14 and 14 bypass intersection. The first segment is west of I-29 alternatives that includes US 14 bypass from just east of Jackrabbit Avenue to 25th Avenue. The first alternative is the existing 3-lane section that includes intersection improvements and access management. A second alternative incorporates a 4-lane divided section on US 14 bypass where we have 2 through lanes in each direction, includes intersection improvements, and then 3 sub-options that look at varying degrees of access management through this area. A third alternative is a multi-lane hybrid, and this includes the 2 through lanes in each direction similar to the 4-lane divided. But in this instance, there's segments here that includes a center 2-way left turn lane instead of a raised median. Similar to the 4-lane divided, the multi-lane hybrid also includes 3 sub-options that look at varying degrees of access management through this segment. The second segment includes the I-29 exit 133 interchange alternatives. That all three alternatives include a modified diamond configuration that was brought forward from US 1414 bypass corridor study, very similar to the existing configuration, except that the northbound ramp terminal intersection, or that eastern interchange intersection, is shifted to the west to provide 660 feet separation between that northbound ramp terminal intersection and the 32nd Avenue intersection. There are three alternatives developed. Two of them include a 3-lane bridge, and a third alternative includes a multi-lane bridge, looking at different configurations of number of lanes being carried through the interchange and away from the interchange on US 14 bypass. The third segment includes US 14 bypass alternatives east of I-29, from 32nd Avenue to just north of US 14. One alternative includes the existing 3-lane section, plus intersection improvements and access management. A second alternative includes a 4-lane divided section, which includes 2 through lanes in each direction, plus a raised median, also with intersection improvements and access management. And then a series of alternatives east of 34th Avenue look at the existing 2-lane section, incorporating a 3-lane section, as well as a couple connection options with 211th Street and 18th Street. The fourth segment includes the US 14 bypass intersection east of Brookings. Two alternatives were developed for this intersection. The first includes an urban intersection that brings everything in tight to a single intersection point and sets up the location for signalization at some point in the future. A second alternative includes a continuous green T intersection, which also brings things in tight for an urban intersection, but in this instance adds an acceleration lane for southbound to eastbound left turn traffic on US 14, and it also incorporates a median that separates US 14 eastbound through traffic from the signalized intersection location. And this would allow eastbound traffic to continue through the intersection and not need to stop at the traffic signal. And before we conclude the presentation, I want to touch on a couple highlights here of the public meeting open house. There are a number of display boards with study information available for your review. Those boards include background information such as traffic volumes and future traffic operations analysis, the draft purpose and needs statement, alternatives and layouts of those alternatives for each of the 4 segments along US 14 bypass corridor, as well as at the exit 133 interchange. There's also a preliminary measures board that includes some information related to future traffic operations associated with each of the alternatives and safety benefits, as well as construction costs to implement each of the alternatives. So with all the available study information, we encourage you to review the boards for this first public meeting, ask questions of study representatives, and ultimately provide feedback on the draft purpose and needs statement, the exit 133 interchange alternatives, and US 14 bypass corridor alternatives. The one thing I'd like to stress is please help us understand the why in your feedback. For example, if there are things you don't like or think could be improved, please share your concerns and suggestions of what you'd like to see modified. This is the type of feedback we're looking for at this stage of the study as we move into the more detailed refinement and evaluation of alternatives in the next phase following this public meeting. And with that, I'd just like to thank everyone for their time and interest in the I-29 exit 133 Interchange Modification Study. Again, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to reach out to any of the study contacts. You can also review the materials on the study website at www.i29exit133.com. And we look forward to seeing you at our next public meeting in summer 2023.